We chose Michael because he has a record of doing extraordinary, imaginative, unpredictable things. He's an artist who, I think his choice surprised many people. It surprised Michael because he's not a painter. Our collection is paintings. Our collection is principally narrative and representational. But because Michael's got this extraordinary record of achievement, we thought, well, let's see what happens. Right, so Michael, welcome.
Thank you.
To the National Gallery. Now, you were a bit bemused when we contacted you first of all.
I was.
Why?
Well, because I didn't think I was the type of person that the National Gallery would ask to become artist in residence, partly because of my track record.
So,
destruction in art.
Destroying things.
And also, I've never made a painting in my whole life. I know, what were you thinking? I never went there as a student. I never went there as an adult. I never went there as a junior. I was never taken there, so I had no... there's no reference points, really, for me.
It's something that artists ought to do. You've got to measure up to the past. Art is now a very sophisticated language with a whole history. And if you measure yourself up against art that's been made in the last 6 months or art in the last 5 years, very shallow waters indeed. I think all serious artists need to measure up against, let's take a name out of the air, shall we, Michelangelo.
It's quite stuffy, the National Gallery. It can feel stuffy and it can feel... Well, it's scholarly and all those things are good, but obviously I'm trying to do something else.
Well, the Rootstein-Hopkins Associate Artist Scheme is devised so we can invite an artist, a contemporary artist of considerable achievement, to come and basically take up residence in the gallery studio and to make new work that responds to the collection. That's the only stipulation that we've got. Please make new work that engages with, in some way, the collection or an aspect of the collection.
What's the rest of it? Well, I've been here for 6 days so far, and I've been doing almost a century per day.
So you're looking?
So I'm looking and I'm marking off what rooms I'm doing. It's a labyrinth. I'm getting lost, but now I've allowed myself to get lost because I'm not in any rush. So yeah, I'm basically, that's what, I'm an artist. That's what I spend quite a lot of time doing anyway, is looking. I don't necessarily look at art, but I'm just kind of looking and observing, and I'm just here with the general public looking at the collection.
That foot is so weird.
Yeah, the foot's
that
weird
because
it's like
utterly weird.
Almost like a sticker, isn't it? Flat,
yes,
flat
yeah, it's as if it's
it.
nothing to do with that body. It's just, it's...
But almost like how that hand is almost like these kind of tulip heads as well.
Michelangelo, Rembrandt, Vermeer, Van Gogh, you don't get bigger names than those guys. So consequently, if you're an artist, let's say in your 40s, and you are invited to show in that same space as artists who have been around for centuries, who really have stood the test of time, yeah, it's daunting.
I mean, I think the thing was that I knew that I would never be good enough, because you're judged in context of the collection, and they stop acquiring things, so they don't buy contemporary art. So so I think contemporary art at the National Gallery can be a bit of an eyesore. Or maybe the vast majority who go there probably think it is an eyesore. So, and I like eyesores.
The art bin, which was the project he was making when he started here, was inviting established international artists as well as Sunday painters to submit works that they deemed had failed and to chuck them away. And failure for an artist is a risk that you constantly run.
I was on a hiding to nothing in some respects, but at the same time, obviously, it's probably the only opportunity I'll ever be able to get to show at the National Gallery.
This will be, without a doubt, Michael's biggest show in terms of audience engagement. We don't know how many people are going to come for it, but the show is on for about 6 months. It's going to top 250,000 people, I'm sure. Drawing is now what you come and do here.
At present, yeah, but I don't think I'll end up with an exhibition of drawings. Well, I'll be surprised, but I think it's just kind of my way into it. I mean, I drew as a child.
Yeah.
Teachers encouraged me to draw. And then, yeah, between the ages of 16 and 18, at life drawing, and after that I stopped. When I was at school, people used to taunt me about saying that I didn't have any imagination, that I was only good at copying. At the moment, I'm drawing paintings. That's what, I mean, it's actually, I'm drawing paint. That's kind of how I began as a child. You kind of begin with people putting things in front of you and you copying them. And so all of that's kind of intriguing, and how an artist can find their own language within that. So it makes, you know, even that you reference it, but also at the same time, you try to make it yours.
Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah.
I see you've moved on from
Portraits.
from the Cézannes. There's always been something very extraordinary about Michael, that he's a very sophisticated innocent, and people have trust in him. He gives people confidence that something can come of giving him an opportunity, and the reason why people do it continually, ever more so, is because it always produces something worthwhile, something interesting, and something important.
When Michael made the decision to work on this subject, I don't think there was actually a specific moment. It kind of crept up on him because he'd been drawing, he'd been going into the collection and drawing from Cézanne, Degas, Dosso Dossi and El Greco, and almost accidentally he started drawing the little painting by Pinturicchio of St. Catherine with her wheel. And I don't think immediately he thought, aha, saints, the wheel. I think once he'd drawn it, it's an idea that slowly dawned upon him.
With most of my ideas, I normally get the idea quite early on and then dismiss it and then come back to it later on. And so I had this idea. Well, the first thing I noticed was how many St. Catherine wheels were in the collection. So I'd go around with my little notebook, noting things down when things... I like basically daydreaming. You're looking at the paintings and then you may read the label and then you start to daydream and then thoughts start to pop into your head.
Here's the Jerome by Dürer that you were reminding me of. I couldn't picture it in my mind. The light is so important here.
Yeah.
And that kind of, you know, early morning, late, well, to me that looks early morning.
And why did he go to the desert in the first place? Just to kind of get away from everyday life, or?
Take himself out of the everyday.
He's a hermit, he's a scholar, he's a doctor of the church. He's angry, he kind of, flagellates himself when he has sexual hallucinations about the dancing girls in Rome. So he starts to beat his chest with a rock. And also I like it because obviously artists, they beat themselves. I beat myself up the whole time. I used to hit myself or bang my head against a wall or something, just as a way to get frustration. So, and I like the idea of being a hermit, so you can just go away with your own thoughts and think about your art, not email anybody, not, you know, it's a nice kind of thought just to lock yourself away in a cave and make art and beat yourself up at the same time. When I first became associate artist in residence here, then the first thing I really noticed about wandering was St. Catherine. I had a little red notebook, National Gallery, little red notebook, and I just kept writing down St. Catherine the whole time. And so, there must be a reason to that.
You know, it's interesting. In 1969, they decided that there wasn't enough firm evidence of her early life, that she was actually a saint, so she was thrown out of the calendar.
I think I read that somewhere. Yeah, she was
That's
thrown out of the
fascinating.
saints' calendar.
Yes.
Has she
So
been
was
brought back
so-
since,
I
or
don't
by
think
popular
so, no.
demand? I like the idea that the saints, in a sense, well, for me anyway, were discarded and everyone's forgotten about what they signify, really. I don't know if they are relevant. I just love their stories. They're balmy. I've been chopping up lots of different St. Jerome's from different times. So I'm just creating some collages at the moment. This is close to cutting up the collection as I possibly can get. I kind of like to think of them as Frankenstein's monsters. So I take a Cosimo Tura St. Jerome arm and a Di Roberti chest and a Cima base, and they're all different proportions, and I cobble them together. I just want them to come alive for a different audience, really. And that's when I came up with the idea of somehow amalgamating Renaissance art with kinetic art from the 1960s and 70s. So I'm trying to recreate that feeling I had as a 17 or 18-year-old going to an exhibition of Jean Tinguely's work, Swiss kinetic artist. When you go for a Tinguely catalogue, you just see lots of people smiling and laughing at sculpture. So that's what I'm trying to get to. Which painting is this taken from again? I can't remember.
That's the Cima.
That's the Cima, yeah. So literally, that's all the Cima. That's his arm. That's his chest. It's kind of like you find these parts in the scrapyard, and all these wheels are going to be kind of 60s and 70s kind of era wheels. So it's a kind of
wonderful.
Yeah, it's a kind of clinky clanky kind of sculpture. So I've started. This is all St. Jerome. So I've literally
He's essentially abstracting bits of different, very important paintings. He's pulling them all together, animating them in 3 dimensions, monumentalizing them. So something that was sort of teeny tiny, he's suddenly blowing up times 10. And I think it's going to make people feel in a whole new way. So I think what he's doing in his own project is pulling people into the paintings and getting them to ask very important questions about the paintings.
We're going to go to MDM in Herne Hill, who basically fabricate kind of sculptures and all sorts of things for artists. So we're going to go and visit them and see how far they've got with the St. Jerome sculpture, just to kind of give me an idea of what it's going to look like and the kind of finishing touches we have to give it. Well, it's much bigger than I imagined. But, Nigel, over to you.
It's the size you drew it. Effectively, we pivot in here, coming down and striking the chest with the rock here.
Yeah, be about there. So if it's the butt end, isn't it? The butt end of the rock will hit the chest.
We'll go beyond this broken line.
Yeah.
We'll probably catch the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's sensible, and then we do it. Much of the mechanism have we got up there? No, because that looks like,
The gallery is a quiet place. It's perceived as having these old pictures in gold frames with an atmosphere of hushed reverence. Michael's saints are animated. They will make a noise.
that would be good. I mean, that and that head are fine, because, but I think some people may be hurt by the idea of I've got, St. Thomas's finger actually kind of more or less literally punching Christ's chest and making holes in his chest. So I guess some people may be upset by that, or Francescans being upset about St. Francis hitting himself over the head with a crucifix when he put some money into my donation box. All the money goes to the National Gallery, I may add.
What I hope we're able to do is stop people coming here being passive, because looking at art is not, or should not be, a passive experience. And I think Michael will provoke people, I hope Michael will provoke people to go into the galleries, to look at his source pictures, the pictures he's worked from, and to engage with them as well. we're installing it. It's arriving in bits and pieces, and somehow it's being put together. It'll be all right on the night. Come and have a look. Jerome, who you saw at the MGM factory being made.
What the issue is
being a public institution, we have to look out for health and safety legislation, no matter how balmy it might seem, but we do, and even the saints aren't exempt. The saints in heaven aren't exempt from health and safety legislation, which is reassuring to know. What we were keen to avoid was the torso of Christ hitting members of the public in the face. I mean, theologically, great, it's proving the corporeality of God-made man, very much interestingly, in a very much a 17th century counter-Reformation way. Artists like Caravaggio would have understood this sculpture as being about the reality of the resurrection. When we invited Michael, we had no idea what he might do, how he might relate to the collection, and he didn't. And going into this show now, it's still surprising, startling. It amazes me. It makes me laugh, but also it's serious. I mean, it's like a surrealist experience going into this room with these giant figures of these saints doing extraordinary things to themselves. It's extraordinary.
You can't dictate what people get from artwork. So, so I don't know if I've made something that's too funny or I've made something that's not reverential enough, because they're not spiritual. I've St. Peter Martyr hitting himself over the head with a sword. I've got St. Lawrence's griddle. I've got St. Lucy's eyes that move around on a plate. She plucks her eyeballs out, because they're also destructive, the saints. So they destroy themselves by their faith, in a sense. So they try and convert everybody. So they're very single-minded. So that's what I really liked about them, their single-mindedness, and they're kind of martyred. So I haven't used the nice saints. I haven't used St. Dorothy, who drops roses and apples from heaven, or St. Nicholas, who gives people his golden balls to stop young ladies going into a life of prostitution. So St. Nicholas is also Father Christmas. So I've learnt some stuff. It hasn't all been wasted whilst I've been at the National Gallery. I've learnt some things.